Good afternoon, Wrestling Inc. Get up, get going. Welcome back to the Wrestling Inc. Daily. It's me, your managing editor of WrestlingInc.com, Nick Hausman, joined here as I am every Thursday to get thirsty for some pro wrestling punditry. It's our good friend, Paul Pratt. Paul, welcome back to the Wrestling Inc. Daily.
It's good to be back. Yeah. Happy Thursday, everyone.
Happy Thursday, everybody. I hope you are ready. We got some great, big, juicy news to talk about here in the news block. Later on, if you're listening to us in audio form, you're going to get the full audio from Mercedes Martinez's Ring of Honor Media Scrum. That's the Ring of Honor Supercard Media Scrum. This is the last of the audio that I have from our Dallas coverage to roll out on the show. So everything else going forward, I got to source more new content, Paul.
I'm working on something for us. I've got a tentative agreement. Waiting to get that scheduled. It'll be good. Promise you.
That's right. Yeah, Paul hit me up. He wanted to do an interview with somebody. I immediately signed off. Very buzzy individual you want to talk to.
Indeed. He's so busy he can't get me on his schedule.
Well, hopefully we'll find time. All right. Well, so we're going to have some more content rolling out in the future, but today Mercedes Martinez in the mailbag at the end of the show. We're going to look at Bray Wyatt. He got everybody wound up here once again today. What's the future possibly look like for Bray Wyatt? And of course, the chat room is open here. Ray Ann jumped in first of all here today. Paul and Nick, two gentlemen that I like. CM Punk versus Dustin Rhodes was dynamite. Punk is a Paul Heyman, Bret Hart guy, double heart, black heart. I hope Punk versus Page is like a throwback to Piper versus Bret at Mania 8. So we'll talk about all that later. And Bruce Barrett saying, "What's up from Connecticut?" Hi, Bruce. Thanks for jumping in today, buddy. Appreciate you. All right, let's get into it. News you can use. News that'll leave a bruise. The latest huge announcement from Tony Khan was delivered on Dynamite last night, along with New Japan president Obari and Adam Cole, baby, jumped in to let everybody know that AEW and New Japan are going to be doing a super show called Forbidden Door, June 26th, right here in my backyard of Chicago, Illinois, back at the United Center, a drivable, easy ride for me. I love it. Did this live up to your expectations of what you thought this was going to be, Paul?
I think for personally, no. I tweeted last night. By the way, if you're not following me on Twitter, please follow me on Twitter. I'm pushing towards 12,000 followers. But I tweeted last night that I'm not a big New Japan fan. So or not that I'm not a fan, I'm just not very knowledgeable about it.
Sure.
So for me, this was not the home run that it would have been for presumably hundreds of thousands of people who love New Japan and have been aching for this combination of AEW and New Japan for a while.
Yeah, no, same thing for me. Like, I like New Japan. I'll catch a Wrestle Kingdom once a year.
Right.
I'm not going to stay up till 3:00 in the morning to start, round 7 of the G1. That's just not in the cards for me. No offense to anybody who really enjoys that stuff. But this was a very targeted niche announcement. I agree with that. It played really well to their hardcore fans, people who like this. But, I think it was Alfred Kunawa who was over on Twitter talking about how this doesn't really grow the company or grow the appeal or bring new people in the way other things could have. This was a big announcement for those that really love this kind of wrestling.
I think that this has the strong potential to grow the company in a random way, because there are people who I think have been looking for some of these types of dream matches that this offers, and those people might tune in. But I do think that generally speaking, the people who love New Japan, who are really truly aching for this kind of crossover, have long been a fan of AEW because so many of their talents came from New Japan to begin with.
Yeah, for sure. And you're right. There are pockets of fans out there that really love Bullet Club, right? Maybe they haven't seen Bullet Club around, or they love Okada or Naito, right? And you're going to pick up some of those fans. That's true. Maybe just the occasional press of this American company working with this, international company, maybe a little bit of that. When I see it though, when I saw him and Obari right next to each other, man, it really felt like WCW, like early 90s to me. I thought I was watching like a Starrcade or something, didn't it? Because WCW used to do a lot of stuff with New Japan in the early 90s like this, right?
Right. Well, that's New Japan was providing them some of their international world champions back then, the Masahiro Chonos and things of that nature. But I think that for the hardcore fans, I do think that this was a huge announcement. I think that they've been wanting this for a long time. For the general fan, I do not think that it was the kind of blockbuster announcement that a lot of people would have expected.
Yeah, and it's like, where's the bar now, right? What's going to deliver on these expectations? They're fun little segments. I'll say that. I like the kind of swerve of Adam Cole taking over. Jay White coming out, I thought was okay. I mean, we've seen Jay before. Set the stage, but we'll see where they go with it. It's going to be all about the build. Bruce Barrett here on the hook already, saying I personally can't wait for the Forbidden Door.
Yeah, I think that Bruce is with many people. Many people have been looking forward to this crossover for years, since the literal launch of AEW. For those who fall into the category like myself, I never sought out New Japan. It was challenging to find. It was, for many years, it was not broadcast with an English commentary team.
True.
So it was, and since New Japan specifically is so linked to the kind of nuances of character and history that those individuals have together, if you can't get a clear commentary team to explain that to you, there's a great deal lost. So I've never been a big proponent of seeking that out. Perhaps now with AEW kind of opening the door for me to see some of these people, to have some of these stories told, perhaps it'll change that for me. But I don't think that, for me, this was as exciting as, let's say, if they had announced that they had gotten a Ring of Honor distribution deal.
Yeah, well, by the way, Issa here, jumping in the chat room. I'm with Paul, she says. And Esteban Swan Esquire, echoing you, saying, meanwhile, Ring of Honor still homeless. Let's get that HBO Max deal going. I know this was something a lot of other fans thought, that if it wasn't going to be the Super Show, it might be something to do with Ring of Honor's distribution. I don't know if anybody saw, I don't know if you saw this, but like earlier today it was reported CNN Plus, which was CNN's, whatever, their little streaming service, their OTT, that got collapsed today by Warner Brothers Discovery, got put down. And yeah, it only, I think the reports were like it had like 10,000 subscribers. I mean, and like, truthfully, who really wants CNN Plus? And so anyway, Warner Brothers Discovery right now, looking at their assets, really trying to figure out what is worth keeping, what is worth investing in, what is worth shedding. And they don't own AEW, right? They just own the land that AEW has its trailer home set up on right now. I wasn't meant to be a trailer park joke for wrestling fans. But anyway, it'll be interesting to see, as they are sifting through things right here, has the success of AEW, if they were doing 10 for CNN Plus, and you can easily point to WWE and say, well, they're doing like, what were they doing? Like $1 million, 2 million?
Something of that nature.
If we even did 5% of that, we're already doing way better than CNN Plus did. So is there a conversation right now about, retooling some of the infrastructure maybe that was in place for that? I'm just throwing it out there, but there's a lot of moving pieces right now when it comes to the content. And I think it's intriguing right now that they haven't quite picked a direction or given a hint of that direction yet.
I do think that we will continue to see things move forward in terms of AEW beginning to build the infrastructure to have that kind of a service available. And I think that that's something, obviously, that Tony Khan wants. Tony Khan's business model seems to be largely based on whatever WWE does. He wants what they have. So I think that since WWE has done that, partnering with an outside third party like Peacock, I think that that is the most obvious direction that AEW will go. And one of the benefits of partnering with an organization like New Japan is that you could conceivably bring in their catalog of materials to be available as well within the United States in a way that they have not been previously.
Yeah. That's a great look at the Super Show. And, we can talk more about dream matches and stuff like that. But, DJ Duke here saying New Japan just needs the buzz. And I don't want to say that dismissively, because New Japan definitely brings a lot to the table, but it is certainly something how as Tony Khan has stated many times, pre-pandemic, really not much of a relationship there, right? It is amazing to see how far Tony Khan has been able to pull that company. I don't know what pulling them past this would look like. I mean, this is about as tight, I think, as you could get with a relationship with another promotion now.
Well, I do think that New Japan, in terms of exposure to the broader pro wrestling community, can leverage this relationship. And I think that the distinction between what Tony Khan has shown in example with the relationship with Impact is that I think he has a far greater level of respect for New Japan's history, much like he has a far greater respect for AAA and the way they present those tag team titles versus the way they ever presented anything from Impact. So New Japan and AAA, and I think all of these relationships could really continue to build, and I think it'll build the product for everyone, but I don't think it's going to accelerate it at the rate that some people would require for it to be successful in their mind.
At this pace, it does look like FTR is going to get another shot at some tag gold elsewhere, right? Isn't that the kind of trajectory they're on at the moment?
I mean, I think that right now, like, I wouldn't doubt if FTR ends up with the AEW tag team titles before very long.
Well, speaking of titles, possible changes, after CM Punk picked up a win over Dustin Rhodes last night on Dynamite, Hangman Adam Page's music hit. He stopped at the top of the ramp, held his title, stared down at Punk before the show went to commercial, and now it looks as though AEW is teasing the next major feud for the world title after Hangman's feud with Adam Cole has been put behind him for the time being. Hangman Page, CM Punk, it looks like we're there, Paul.
I think that is obviously where we're going, and I think that if AEW wants to cement Adam Page as, a real face and a real contender in the world of wrestling, they're going to have to let him get that victory over CM Punk.
Yeah, I would think so too, right? But I mean, Punk's Punk right now, and Tony Khan riding that Punk train hard. And I know that he's got a lot put into Hangman Adam Page right now, but I have to imagine he's putting more. I would have to imagine he's pumping more money into CM Punk than probably anybody else in the company. You could make the argument maybe one or two other guys, but a lot of money. And you want to see a return on that, right? And with as on the money as Punk has been, and with how gracious he was with doing business with MJF, 2 losses in one night, regardless of how they came across. I don't know, man. I think there's a very good chance Punk takes his title from Hangman Page.
I don't doubt that either. I think that it's very likely that he will do that. I think that, again, it's one of those scenarios where if you want to cement your homegrown, they have to pick up that victory. But at the same time, CM Punk is opening literally almost every single show for them. And Adam Page is the world champion, and he's scarcely getting 5 minutes of airtime.
Yeah, it's true. Hangman Page, and I saw that on Rampage, right? They did 500,000 viewers, and that was the title match. And there were some people finger pointing at that. And, look, Hangman Page is not the draw for AEW right now. And if the goal is to put the title who's on the draw, then you put it on a CM Punk,
Yes. And I would think that even Adam Cole is a better draw than Adam Page. But that is, something that I don't have those numbers to back that up, but I definitely think that to be the case. Personally, that's an opinion. But I think that Adam Page was a great experiment for them. I think he is somebody who they have invested in. I think that they've gotten as much return on investment for him as they're going to get.
Agreed.
And I think that he becomes one of those types of individuals who is far better chasing the belt than holding it.
Yes, I think so too. There is nothing wrong with Hangman
Not at all.
losing the title at this point to CM Punk. So much storytelling that can be done with him trying to chase that thing and get it back. Bruce here saying Hangman is great, but I think his run came about a year too late. And with people like Punk and Bryan there now, I think his days are numbered. And yeah, it was
that is correct.
When he left for the kid, which is fine and all that, he was hotter than he'd ever been, and people really wanted to see it. And I was even there for it. When he came back, the landscape had just changed,
And that is absolutely correct. And it's no slight to him to say that. That is accurate. It's a matter of when they choose to pull the trigger on somebody, the time when they've reached that fevered pitch, if you don't do it right, then, it's like the climax happens, and then you're having to try to reach it again. Adam Page's time, unfortunately, did pass, and they did not put it on him when they could have at his peak. And then what happens afterwards is it feels like a letdown. I would relate it to what happened to Adam Shearer, aka Braun Strowman. They had that opportunity to put the belt on him in WWE. they did not do it at the time. And by the time they got back around to it, that moment had long passed.
Yeah. Well, Sammy Guevara certainly in the moment right now with his third TNT title reign, officially, I guess, turning heel last night. That's what everybody's saying, but I thought he was always kind of heel recently, wasn't he? Or I don't know.
First of all, I just have issues with them saying it's his third title reign when he's only won the title twice and an interim belt once, but whatever. Like the second win to me is a confirmation of the first win. It wasn't an actual win.
Yeah.
So whatever. But I've always felt that they had him as a really strong babyface, but this situation with Ty Conti happening, and I think that there's a lot of people who started to turn on him just because of the fact that they're fully aware that a couple months before this went public, he was on their screen proposing to a totally different person.
Yes.
And now here he's trotting out this beautiful Brazilian bombshell and can't keep his hands off of her. And I think that people are kind of, yes, I'm sure that the PDA element doesn't help, but I think it's about what kind of audacity do you have, doing this?
Hey, his wife or his ex-fiance or whatever has come out and I guess tried to defend this and diffuse it, or she doesn't want this in her life either. But yes,
I wouldn't either. I wouldn't want to be the reason for that. But at the same time, God bless her for being so nice about it.
Yes, true. Well, he addressed the fans, hot girlfriend. His new catchphrase is "Be mad," and I guess we're getting a double turn here because he was confronted by Ethan Page, Scorpio Sky, and Dan Lambert, who, if he's the heel, are they the baby faces? That's a pretty about face.
But that's hard for me to buy into because Dan Lambert super duper sucks, but he has played this sort of in between role before because they were trying to use him to get babyface heat, babyface kind of response reaction for Brandy, and people just despised her so much that it just wouldn't work for her either.
Yeah, and look, DJ Duke here saying the crowd used to love Sammy and Tay. I don't really understand the transition here either because I didn't really think they were like hated. Maybe they just needed to pick a lane and pick a direction because they were just getting such a mixed reaction and they wound up here. But yeah, I don't understand this. And Scorpio Sky, man, I felt really this guy once again just kind of a transitionary role with this title. I mean, it's like when they need somebody to hold the belt till the next guy comes along, I guess call Scorpio some of the time, Do
you remember back when Tony Khan tried to tell us that he had this plan for months and months and months and like all this time, and it was always going to put that belt on Scorpio Sky, and it just so happened to come about when Big Swole said that there was no black representation or very limited representation of minorities on camera. I didn't buy it then when he said it, and his actions since then have proved it. Scorpio Sky was absolutely a lackluster TNT champion, and it felt extremely like transitional because of a need.
Well, maybe he's going to get it back because next week him and Sammy are going to have another TNT title ladder match. Is that part of the belt? Like, is the belt always in a ladder match now?
No, but
I'm not against it because it just happens all the time,
The funny part about this was that they acted like this happened on the spot, but I was listening rather closely and I didn't hear them say that it was going to be a ladder match until the announce team said it's happening in a ladder match. Oh my goch. He just said, I want a rematch. He said nothing about a ladder match.
I'd have to go back and watch it, but that makes sense. That resonates.
It was. I was like, wait a minute, where did that come from? Like they mentioned the intergender match, like the mixed tag team thing, but there was, in my memory, there is no mention whatsoever of it being a ladder match until the commentary team was like, "Oh my God, it's a ladder match."
Well, after Dynamite was over, Tony Khan came out, asked the crowd to chant for an upcoming game called Fight Forever. Now, we don't know if that's going to be another, it's going to be their console game or another mobile game. Most people seem to take it as it's going to be the name of the official AEW game will be Fight Forever. And that's something people are talking about, Paul.
AEW is working towards this game. And I think that we mentioned this before last week when we talked, AEW is invariably having the exact opposite problem of WWE. WWE has to keep going back and revisiting and taking people out of their game because they're getting released fast. AEW has to suddenly start putting people in because they keep getting added fast. We don't know what's going on.
Yeah. In WWE world, New York Post reporting Pat McAfee currently in talks with Amazon to potentially contribute to their NFL Thursday night football coverage, which begins in the fall. So another possible gig here for Pat McAfee, who already does so many things.
Pat McAfee is so talented. That's how talented he is. And anybody who grinds like that, I give them major props. Pat McAfee has transitioned into commentary for WWE. Unlike almost anybody we've seen in history, he has fit so well into the product. He brings something really fresh to the announce team, that kind of unabashed fandom, right? Like that ability to translate the things that the fans feel, because he is a fan. His job is not necessarily to just be a pure commentator. It is to kind of reflect that voice. I really love it. And of course, no better place for him than talking about NFL.
Talking about grinding, TMZ Sports releases video, like a cell phone video, Mike Tyson wailing on a dude in an airplane. So I guess what happened here was they're waiting to take off. I think it was San Francisco to Tampa. So I don't know what they're putting in the water where you're at, Paul. Something.
Man, I could have been on this flight and seen all this.
I know. Very, very disappointed you weren't. And I watched the video of the guy, and his buddy's like, he's intoxicated, and I guess they did a selfie, and then he starts asking Mike Tyson to like get him mushrooms or whatever, and like he's basically antagonizing drunkenly Mike Tyson, which is the equivalent of walking drunkenly into a lion's pit,
Poking the bear.
Right. This is the most direct example of poking the bear. I don't know what else there is than this example, So,
yeah, I mean, I have not seen this video. It's intriguing to think about, but undoubtedly, no matter what happens, whoever it is that got a beat down from Mike Tyson is going to have a lawsuit pending before the end of this podcast. Like, if it's not already pending right now.
All right, Paul. Well, I want to thank you for joining the Top Show Talk All the News today. I want to thank everybody for tuning in here today, watching the show. Share out the link. Let people know 5 p.m. Eastern over here on the Wrestling Inc. YouTube channel. We're working on getting the video back on to the main page of the site. But until then, we need y'all to keep sharing that love out for the moment. Support the site. And thank you to Ring of Honor, AEW, Mercedes Martinez. Very wonderful media scrum there with Mercedes. All right, let's dive to the mailbag. Today's mailbag question stems from the fact that earlier today on Twitter, Bray Wyatt changed his Twitter name to a red circle. He also changed his photo to a sketch of a one-eyed creature. He then tweeted the first of what would be several cryptic tweets, noting, "I do think it's true that he who makes a beast of himself gets rid of the pain of being a man." He continued with a few more tweets, the second of which featured another drawing of a creature with a snake crawling into its mouth. You wrote, but if you become the machine, you don't have to feel at all. Hashtag what if, and then to be sentient. Well, before we get to the poll, what do you think of Bray Wyatt's latest bread to the ducks here?
I don't know. I saw this on our run sheet. I have not kept up with this. I have not seen these things. But I think that Bray Wyatt is a very, very intelligent individual. And I think that he has such a tremendous amount to offer to the world of professional wrestling. I would love to see him return to active competition soon, because he is somebody who he's not an incredibly young individual. So we don't have decades to deal with him. And I would like to see him be more impactful than he has been while he has the opportunity.
Yeah. And I love the idea of this, coming out as I always wanted to see him come out as some 18-foot giant multi-headed snake, kind of Cirque du Soleil, Lion King on Broadway type deal. I wanted to see it go bigger. I hope that's what we're going to get here with how outside the box he's thinking right now,
Yeah, I think that he has a lot of ideas in his head. And I think that from what we've seen in WWE, a lot of those things were, that we saw in WWE were of his own creation. So let's see where he takes it unfettered by that.
All right. Well, this leads into today's poll question. Who in pro wrestling would you most like to see Bray Wyatt feud with right now? And this is all of pro wrestling. Got over 200 votes here. 39.3 said House of Black. 35% Edge, Damian Priest. 18.7% Cody Rhodes, and then 7% to everybody else. So it looks like, obviously, most interested Bray doing something with the other spooky stables. I just said Cody because Cody's the most, buzzy thing at the moment. So why not? Anyway, what do you want to see Bray doing if he does get back into things?
Certainly nothing relating to Cody Rhodes. I liked the idea that I would love to see Bray come back and challenge. Somebody wrote in, I would like to see him mixed in with Roman Reigns if he were to come back to WWE. If he goes if he goes anywhere else, I'm not as sure. I don't necessarily want to see him feuding with other spooky individuals. I would like to see him come in because of the stature of his character and the stature of his name recognition. I would like to see him coming in, if anything, leading one of those spooky factions. I think that's very intriguing.
Okay, so we have at Gordzilla and at Dubs Ryan here. They both wrote in, he joins House of Black. And I think, with the idea that he's going to be maybe doing this big spooky sentient thing, what if he's the god they're all praying to or whatever in House of Black? That could be a fun thing. I'm okay with that.
I mean, there was a time and a place where I think many of us would have liked to have seen him come in and scoop Dark Order up
It's past.
And save it from the obscurity of stupidity. But they've obviously become a faction that's all about, I don't know. They're not dark.
I think they're done. I mean, I'm not trying to cast aspersions here or negativity, but like when Hangman Page looked at them and was like, I have to be my own man, and they did that kind of vignette on AEW Dynamite, and they just kind of walked away, and Dark Order was just like, oh, whoa, what are we going to do? I think that was the tail of the tape right there, my friend.
Yeah, that faction, it has become the Three Stooges act of, it's like when Laurel and Hardy go on the Scooby-Doo show and they're like, everything is just like, oh, it's dark, but it's scary and it's stupid. That's exactly where I place it.
You should be pitching ideas to Vince McMahon. Laurel and Hardy, Scooby-Doo, these are things he knows.
That was an actual thing. Laurel and Hardy were on Scooby-Doo.
No,
as were the Harlem Globetrotters, as were Batman and Robin, as were
best Harlem Globetrotters crossover ever was the Gilligan's Island episode, and I will hear nothing else.
Well, I mean,
okay, all right. Well, that'll bring us to the end of the show here today. Thank you, everybody, once again for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow to shut down the week with TK Trinidad. If you like the Wrestling Inc. Daily, support us on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us right now. Go give us a review, a like, a comment, whatever it is. SupportWrestlingInc.com. We're on all the socials, and come back here tomorrow night after SmackDown for the Wrestling Inc. podcast. It's a lot like this. It's just at night, and just different people talking about the news as we do, and also they'll be obviously talking about SmackDown. Paul, anything you want to put over here before we wrap up the show today?
Hey, I just want to show off the fact that I got this cool new Pollo Del Mar t-shirt.
Nice.
Beautiful. And I will be at Underground Wrestling Alliance on Sunday, April 24th. And if you're in the San Francisco Bay Area, come out and see us at the San Francisco Emporium. The Manager of Champions, Money, Power, Respect, taking on World's Freshest Tag Team in a San Francisco street fight, whatever that means.
So is the Emporium down on the pier?
Absolutely not. Nothing worth going to is down on the pier. It's on Divisadero Street. The pier is the only thing down at the pier.
We went to Alcatraz down on the pier. They have a Exploratorium, I think, down at the pier.
They do. That's for tourists. Locals don't go down there unless they have a job there.
I want to do the Exploratorium. It's a giant jungle gym for adults.
Yeah, very comparable. Yes.
Okay. I am at Nick_Hausman over on Twitter. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I'll talk to you tomorrow. And remember, if you winked, you didn't miss it.